Hello viewers, today's class is Rama Mehta's Inside the Haveli Part 1. Our objective today is to introduce the novel and the author, to look at the events in the novel and to make an in-depth analysis of the characters and setting. Inside the Haveli, published in 1977, is a novel by Rama Mehta that won the Sahitya Academy Award in 1979. The only novel for grown-ups by the author, it deals with the life in an ancient and traditional mansion as seen by a new member of the family, Geeta. The story moves about a period of 15 years with different events of happiness and sadness. The story ends with Geeta assuming the mantle of the mistress of the Haveli and yet undecided about the marriage proposal of her daughter. The main character is Geeta, who tries hard to adjust to customs of Haveli and also tries to change certain repressive practices. Her husband's character is minor but sympathetic. Her in-laws' characters are full of authority but compassionate. The servants form an important corpus of characters in the novel. Pari, Lakshmi, Gangaram, Hiralal, Dhapu and others are important servant characters who also move the story forward. Ram Mehta was born in Nainital, India. She was one of the first women to be appointed for the foreign services. She was a sociologist, lecturer and a novelist. She gave up all of these professions and interests after her marriage. Inside the Haveli is her only novel for grown-ups. This earned the Sahitya Academy Award for her in 1979. She later wrote Ramu and Life of Keshav, two works of children's fiction. She also wrote academic books such as The Western Educated Woman, The Hindu Divorced Woman, India Now and Through Time, and From Parda Through Modernity. This novel, like most of her works, talks about ways of dealing with ancient traditions in the present age. The reconciliation of the protagonist with the myriad customs of the Haveli forms the plot of the novel. The different members of a joint family, that is, master, son, servants, etc., are depicted with attention in detail. The various celebrations associated with joint families are also documented in the novel. The title Inside the Haveli is significant. It gives inkling about the main theme of the novel. As the title suggests, the novel is about what happens inside a Haveli or a traditional mansion in India. Haveli suggests an ancient and huge dwelling place which has been in existence since generations. The preposition that is used, that is, inside, also indicates that the events would only occur inside the Haveli, not outside it. And true to this assessment, except for a few incidents, all the action in the novel happens inside the novel. This fact also leads one to think that the novel would host characters who feel trapped inside the novel, which is also true in the case of Gita. The story begins with the marriage of Gita to Ajay. Gita is a 19-year-old modern girl from Bombay. Her parents introduce her to Ajay, a science professor belonging to an aristocratic family from Udaipur, Rajasthan. Gita's parents assume that despite being a traditional family, Gita's in-laws would not insist on age-old customs in the modern age. They are proved wrong, as the moment Gita steps on to the station in Udaipur, the women in her in-laws' family cover her head, admonishing her for venturing out without doing so. Gita slowly adjusts to life in the Haveli of Jeevan Nivas, aided by her mother-in-law Kanvarani Sa and her maids. 2 years after her marriage, Gita gives birth to a girl, Vijay. This event is celebrated with gusto. At the same time, a servant woman, Lakshmi, also gives birth to a girl, Sita. Bhabasa, Gita's grandmother-in-law, passes away after a few days. The house is plunged in mourning. Lakshmi is startled one day, about a month after the birth of her child, by the driver of the house, Hira Lal, who gives a blouse secretly. Lakshmi's husband discovers the clothes. He is furious and calls her names, accusing her of being unfaithful to him. Despite everyone else consoling her and promising to sort out the problem the next morning, Lakshmi disappears during the night, leaving her girl behind. She is discovered the next day, but refuses to come back. 5 years pass by. Gita gives birth to a boy, Vikram. There have been 2 more deaths in the family. Sangram Singh, Bhabasa's husband, and Bhatyanji, Bhabasa's maid. Vijay and Sita become playmates and best friends. Listening to the children's banter one day, Gita decides to send Sita to school along with her own daughter Vijay. She proposes this to her father-in-law in the absence of her mother-in-law. He promptly agrees. Her mother-in-law feels sidelined at the breach of authority, but can say nothing after her husband's decision. But soon Sita goes to school and is happy. Meanwhile, a mysterious old lady keeps giving gifts of food and bangles to Sita at school. Gita starts teaching the illiterate children of the servants and the maids how to read and write. Beginning by accident, the classes become very popular, with almost every maid in the locality joining Gita's classes. Vijay and Sita are both 13. Sita gets a proposal for marriage from a well-to-do family for a boy called Shivaram, studying in school. The marriage is conducted with fanfare. Meanwhile, Vijay gets a proposal from the family of another rich Haveli, the family of Daulat Singh Ji for their son Veer Singh. Geeta is indignant at the idea of engaging a girl at the tender age of 13. Later, when she sees the boy and his family, her doubts start to fade. Bhagavat Singh has a heart attack and dies, but not before telling Geeta that Veer Singh would be a good match for Vijay. Kamarnisa steps back and Geeta becomes the mistress of the Haveli of Jeevan Nivas. Let's now look into the characters. Geeta. Geeta is the main character in the novel. She is the only outsider in the novel who hails from Bombay. She comes to Udaipur at the age of 19 after her marriage to Ajay. She envisions marriage as a romantic adventure, much like the girls of her age. She is an independent girl, brought up in an unrestrictive environment, having boys and girls as her friends, not flinching to speak in front of elders. All these characters of Geeta are subdued once she comes to the Haveli. The first shock that Geeta receives is at the Udaipur station, where her family relatives cover her face, admonishing her for not doing so earlier. This is her first introduction to Parda. Other restrictive traditions of the Haveli trouble her too. She cannot understand why the dwellings of men and women are segregated. She feels stifled by injunctions asking her not to show affection to her daughter in public. Unused to living in a joint family, she yearns for a moment of peace when maids or relatives do not surround her. Geeta has aesthetic interests. She is interested in reading books, which her husband gets her. She also acquires antique pieces. Initially, Geeta is eager to get away from Udaipur to Delhi, where her husband promises her they will settle. But once she realizes that he would stay on in Udaipur, she begins to consider Jeevan Nivas truly as her home. Once she does this, she changes the course of the life of the Haveli, ushering in reform. First, she convinces the elders in the family to allow the servant girl Sita go to school. Then, by beginning reading and writing classes for children and women, she makes more and more women and children literate. Geeta grows to not just like the Haveli, but respect it. This makes her guard its honor fiercely, going to any extent to safeguard it. She does not mind stopping the classes that she holds if it jeopardizes the respect that people have for the Haveli. The main feature of Geeta's character is that she remains undecided till the end as to the nature of Haveli. Now, Ajay is Geeta's husband. He is a science professor in Udaipur. He gets a better post in Delhi, but he does not take up the offer as he feels he cannot leave the family at Udaipur. He is not as patient with relatives as his father is. He is brusque with them most of the time. Ajay loves his wife and admires her for her grit. He gets her the books that she desires, despite his relatives and servants considering it as an unnecessary expense. Now about Vijay, Geeta and Ajay's firstborn. She is also the first grandchild in the family for 40 years. She is therefore spoilt by everyone. They believe in letting her do whatever she wants. She chooses Sita as her playmate and best friend. She is dismayed at Sita's marriage. But by the end of the novel, the reader feels that at the age of 13, realizing that girls are married off early, Vijay is slowly getting ready for marriage. Bhagavat Singh Ji, he is Geeta's father-in-law. He is described as an elegant man who exudes radiance. His demeanor does not allow for frivolity of any kind. He is strict with Hira Lal, as he cannot bear the dignity of a woman being taken away from her. Despite the etiquette of the Haveli not allowing him to speak directly with his daughter-in-law, he is deeply concerned about her well-being. He is traditional in appearance but modern in outlook. He does not wave away Geeta's suggestion of sending Sita to school, but understands the reasons behind it and ratifies it. Even when the proposal for Vijay's marriage arrives from Daulat Singh's mansion, he does not immediately force Geeta to accept it, but thinks logically about the situation. Bhagavat Singh still considers himself as the guardian of the traditions of the state. Therefore, although the sources of income have dwindled gradually, he still invites the whole town for feasts at occasions. Kanvaranisa, Bhagavat Singh Ji's wife and Geeta's mother-in-law, she is described as a small, bird-like person who nevertheless exudes confidence and command. Her personality makes it difficult for anyone to contradict her. She wins people over by a mix of tenacity and craft. Kanvaranisa is very concerned about the dignity of the Haveli. Considering herself the guardian of the traditions of the Haveli, she takes it as a personal affront when anyone points a finger at her for being lax with regard to traditions. She supports the classes that Geeta conducts, as she genuinely feels that the maids would benefit from it. Sangram Singh and Bhabasa, Bhagavat Singh's parents, who die in the course of the novel, are described as traditional people. Bhabasa is aware of female decorum, as she does not show her face to the doctor even as she is dying. Manji, Bhagavat Singh's cousin, she was widowed at a very young age. She lives on with grit and willpower. She is also described as a woman with quiet dignity. She, however, forever asks her cousin for financial assistance. She also strongly opposes Gita's classes as she does not like her maid attending them. Kanta, Bhagavat Singh's widowed niece. She is described as a smug, selfish and calculating woman. She tries to make life better by educating her sons and getting them good jobs. She too is caustic about Gita's classes. Gopal Singh Ji, Kavaranisa's brother, Nandu, Bhagavat Singh's widowed sister are other characters. The servants form an important corpus of characters in the novel. Not only are they numerous, but they are also prime movers in the events of the novel. They are not homogeneous, but have individual traits. Pari is an important character in the novel. 53 years old when the novel begins, she is the oldest maidservant in the family. Given away by a poor father to the Haveli at a young age, her loyal service earns her a special place in the family. The other maids treat her with deference. She got married as a child, but was soon a widow as well. She overcame the difficulties and sorrow of being a child widow by putting all her energies into serving the Haveli. Lakshmi, also a maid servant. Lakshmi is the opposite of Pari. Similarly, given away at a young age, she hates to work and also hates her ugly husband Gangaram, who looks after her well. Her desire for luxury makes her accept Hira Lal's gifts without reporting them. The discovery of the gifts by Gangaram leads to his abusing her. She is impulsive as she leaves the Haveli and her child. After roaming around for a long while, she returns to Udaipur. She loses her senses but still meets her daughter, giving her gifts and even the sacred symbols of marriage on the occasion of her marriage. She is a tragic character. Gangaram is Lakshmi's husband. His wife despises him because he is ugly. He is, however, kind to her, not saying anything when she does not cover her head. But he gets angry when he discovers the sari and blouse in Lakshmi's closet and abuses her, following which she runs away. Gangaram becomes listless from that moment. He loves his daughter Sita and works hard to get her married suitably, incurring heavy loans in the process. The daughter of Lakshmi and Gangaram is Sita. She is abandoned as an infant by her mother. She is cared for well by the servants of the Haveli. She is a bright child as she does well in school. She gets married at the age of 13. The driver of the Haveli is Hira Lal. He triggers a tragic chain of events when he gives Lakshmi expensive clothes and sweets. He realizes his mistake when he is admonished, but it is late by then. He continues to work at a Haveli, but only like a shadow of his former self. Dhapu is Gita's personal maidservant and her confidant. She teaches Gita and the ways of Haveli without making Gita feel embarrassed. As Dhapu is a young woman like Gita, both of them share a bond of friendship rather than the relationship of a mistress and a maidservant. Bhagavat Singh's servant is Gokul. He is loyal to his master till the end. When Bhagavat Singh is on his deathbed, Gokul does not leave his side but looks after him, neglecting sleep and food. Ganga, Champa, Khyali, the cook are other servants. The setting of the novel is primarily the Haveli of Jeevan Nivas. Gita finds the Haveli forbidding and huge. The Haveli is 300 years old. The members of the Haveli try to maintain the traditions that have come down from these 3 centuries. The Haveli is thus a repository of tradition. The Haveli forms the setting of all the quarrels, affection, marriages and deaths in the family. For women like Gita, who are forced to stay in the confines of the Haveli, it becomes a prison. The pattern of the Haveli is unchanging. Every hour of the day is filled with things, but they have fallen into a routine. Even rest and entertainment have their own time slots. This indicates the unchanging mindset of the people of the Haveli who follow customs without thinking. It is Gita who changes this with her questions and engages the mind of others. The changes in the exterior of the Haveli also indicate the imperceptible changes inside it. For instance, 5 years after Vijay and Sita are born, the rusting iron gate, the mildew on the lime plaster, the yellowing walls indicate that something is changing in the Haveli. Lakshmi's disappearance and refusal to ever return to Jeevan Nivas has cast a shadow on it. Kavaranisa is worried about Lakshmi. Every time anyone looks at Sita, they are reminded of the shocking turn of events after she was born. 5 years later, the exterior of the Haveli has yellowed further, and a portion of it is shut too, as no one can manage the huge Haveli. This indicates that whatever the Haveli stood for is slowly crumbling. The restrictions have surely broken down, as Gita can now speak with her father-in-law. This hitherto helpless state of women in the Haveli has also changed as Gita educates the women. The Haveli thus forms an apt setting for the novel. Dear viewers, I hope you all have enjoyed the first part of this novel, Inside the Haveli. We have seen in this part the setting of the novel and description of a few characters. Let us go in continuation of this novel in part 2.